With the news this year of the Cambridge Analytica data leak, we suddenly came face to face with the fact that having our private lives displayed publicly in social media might actually have some negative consequences. Back in 2009, the Sundance Festival winning documentary film was a movie called We Live in Public. I do not recommend that you see this film, but I did see it, and I can tell you it's not worth seeing, but it does have something important to tell us. It's the story of Josh Harris, a brilliant and perhaps slightly crazy man who intuited the impact of the internet years before anyone else. He recognized its potential. It was Harris who created what eventually became Facebook. In the 90s, Harris launched a massive art project called Quiet, where he invited dozens of artists to live with him in a bunker, with each bed outfitted with a camera and a TV screen. Life was filmed constantly. Harris turned the multiple surveillance cameras on himself and his girlfriend, Tanya, living full-time on the internet. The downside of this being that the entire world is allowed to watch your life flush down the toilet. Yep, there are cameras in there too, in the .com bust. Though, as Tanya shows, the ability to find a misplaced wallet by simply asking the World Wide Web audience is a handy perk. This project called We Live in Public fell apart when the relationship cracked under the pressure of surveillance. While the internet has extended our ability to shape our behavior based on the feedback of those around us, this is not a new human trait. Jesus addresses this behavior in the lesson from the Sermon on the Mount. Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Our Lord understands that we are tremendously needy creatures, and what we long for more than anything else is approval and prestige. So completely are we governed by the desire of others that we risk selling out to them completely, acting out of regard for those who seem to hold the magic keys of goodness. James Allison suggests that the trouble about seeking the approval of the social other is that you will get it. And with it, you are given a self that is the function of the group's desire. This sells us short. You won't be wanting enough. You will have too little desire. Yourself will be a shadow of what you could be if you allowed the Creator to call you into being. Instead, Jesus urges his disciples to receive their self from another other. And the Matthean code for another other is your Father who sees in secret. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners so that they may be seen by others. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Christ completely relativizes the three public cultural functions which we call religion: almsgiving, prayer, and fasting. None of these public forms of goodness are bad, but neither are they worth anything in themselves. Notice Elisha was so taken with what he saw Elijah do that it awakened in him a desire to have what Elijah had, even a double portion. In the end, he got Elijah's mantle, and it worked for him the same way it worked for Elijah. He divided the water and walked on dry ground. But what did he do before he got Elijah's mantle? He tore up his own garment. We can't do two things at once. We can only do the one thing. We see this when Jesus moved off to pray. He understood the need to detox from the pattern of desire, people wanting to make him king or proclaim him as Messiah in a way that was far from what he was trying to teach them. He was acquainted with what we call temptation, the risk of being lured by the social other into a pattern of desire which is presented under the guise of being good, but is not good. So he needed to spend time having his eye strengthened by receiving his pattern of desire from another other. Jesus urges his disciples, Allison says, to receive their self from another other, your Father who sees in secret. That is, the Creator who is absolutely not part of the give and take, the tit-for-tat reciprocity of the social other. When you and I hear Jesus calling us to go into your room and shut the door, we naturally think of our private bedrooms. But the room Jesus suggests might be best translated inner room. Daniel Harrington, Jesuit, who once addressed this group, writes in Sakrapagina, commentary on the Gospel of Matthew, that the Greek word tomaion can refer to a storage room or a pantry. This was the room in the ancient Middle Eastern house which was totally enclosed inside a building with no windows. It also meant that once you shut the door from the inside, you could neither see out nor be seen. We must even silence the voices of others we bring in with us, those tapes that are constantly running inside our head. Allison suggests that Jesus is saying you are addicted to being who you are in the eyes of your adoring public or the execrating public, it doesn't matter which, since crowd love and crowd hate give identity in just the same dangerous way. So go into a place where you are forcibly in detox from the regard of those who give you identity, so that your Father, who alone is not part of that give and take, can have a chance to call your identity into being. The really hard matter of prayer, Allison concludes, is learning to receive ourselves through the eye of another other. The prayer that accompanies us on this faith journey begins simply enough: Our Father.